I'm Stephanie, and welcome to Books and Bubbly. This is a playlist where I review books that I get all bubbly about while drinking something bubbly. And today I am reviewing Dearest by Jackie Walters. I do want to give a warning that there are going to be spoilers in this review. If you want a spoiler-free version of this review, please check out my What I Read in August video, which I will link below. But let's start by seeing what is promised. A new mom in need of help opens the door to her long estranged mother, only to invite something much darker inside. Flora is a new mom enamored of her baby girl, Iris, who has arrived a few weeks early. But with her husband still deployed, Flora must navigate the newborn stage alone. As the sleepless nights pass in their half-empty home, the edges of her reality begin to blur. Household items seem to move on their own accord, and Flora is certain someone is talking to Iris through the baby monitor. Just as Flora becomes convinced she is losing her mind, a surprising guest shows up to help. Flora's own mother, to whom she hasn't spoken in years. Will caring for the baby help them to mend their fraught relationship and start anew? Or is there more that Flora's mother isn't telling her about the events that led to their estrangement? As stranger and scarier events unfold, Flora begins to fear that her mother's secrets have allowed something truly evil to enter her home. She must decide, is her hold on reality slipping dangerously away, or is she in fact the only thing standing between a terrifying visitor and her baby? So on the back it does say this is the October 2024 Book of the Month pick, or one of the options. So I have had this on my shelf for almost a year and ended up grabbing this because I was feeling those like summerween vibes and I was just ready for something spooky, and this absolutely delivered. Oh my god, I loved this. So right off the bat, this book had me going, what the fuck? But in like the best way possible. The first time Flora experienced like something that hints at a haunted house story, I was sitting straight up. The hairs on the back of my neck were standing straight up too. Because this wastes like no time getting to the good stuff and giving us just the right amount of, well, Flora is a new mom and is really tired and maybe she forgot she turned off that toy, to nope, she put that toy in the garage. It did not sprout legs and walk itself back inside. Like, this book was so descriptive and I was completely immersed in the story. I could see everything until the end, and I could absolutely feel everything that was happening in this story. This book is extremely visceral. Now, I will give a warning that this book does deal with postpartum depression and even postpartum psychosis. As well as struggling to connect with a newborn, it does feature a lot of intrusive thoughts, especially around harm coming to Flora's daughter, Iris. If those could be hard to read for you, or you're a new mom, or very close to the end of your pregnancy, or a new parent in general, and this could be triggering to read, you might want to skip this read because it is very much on page. So let's talk about the story proper. So we start with Flora, and she's a bit off kilter. She is not sleeping well as she has a newborn, and her husband Connor is currently deployed, and she doesn't even know where. She's struggling with her new role as a new mom, especially in the area of breastfeeding. She really wants to do it so she can have that bond with her daughter, but she just can't. And she also finds out that she has an infection, so she really cannot do this. She feels her love so intensely for her daughter, but is also terrified of something happening to her daughter. Her daughter is no longer inside her. She can only do so much to keep her safe. And she keeps having these intrusive thoughts of her daughter being hurt. You know, like, oh, what if she falls out of the crib and smashes her face? Or what if this, bookshelf tips over and smushes her in her sleep? What if she wraps a blanket around her face? Like, these are very intrusive thoughts that are plaguing her. Because again, there's nothing she can do. She can't control the universe and stop harm from coming to her baby. These thoughts then turn into hallucinations as Flora sees Iris in danger and saves her, but then realizes the danger was never actually there. It wasn't real. Like, there's the scene where she sees bugs crawling out of Iris's mouth, and Flora's like, oh my god, there's bugs inside her. So, she sticks her fingers in Iris's mouth to get the bugs out, and Iris ends up throwing up, and then the bugs are completely gone. Like they were never there in the first place. And Flora is rightly horrified because she can't tell the difference between what is in her head and what's real. And she caused harm to her baby when she wasn't trying to. She was trying to save her daughter. And it's just, it's so sad. Then other things start happening around the house. Like there's this light up like music toy that starts playing by itself. Even after Flora turns it off. Even after she takes the batteries out. Even after she puts it in the garage and it ends up back on the coffee table by itself, all lit up. Like, it gets to the point that she smashes this thing into 1,000 pieces because she is pretty sure she has tried to take care of this. This toy is haunted. And these scenes freaked me out the most because something like this happened to me once. So I think I was like 15 and I was sleeping over at my aunt and uncle's house. And I was in a bunk bed with my cousins, so I was up at the top. They were down at the bottom. And my cousins are a couple years younger than me, and they wanted to keep the closet light on, to help them sleep. Fine. We go to bed, and like an hour later, one of their baby dolls starts talking from the closet. I try to ignore it, but it keeps calling out. So I get out of bed. I open the closet door to see what is pressing on this doll, like what's pushing on her to activate like her little voice box. Nothing. She's laying dead center in the room, all by herself, nothing touching her, nothing even around her. I tried to ignore it because I'm like, okay, this is just a toy. I go back to bed. As soon as my head touches that pillow, she calls out again. Now I know it's just a battery malfunction, but it was absolutely terrifying. And these scenes just gave me all of those same feelings I had that night. I don't think I fell asleep for like the next 2 hours because I was pretty sure I was going to see this little doll like stick her face out of the closet door and then I don't know, come kill me. But I don't know with what, but she was after me. She was up to something. But Flora has it way worse because her problems are just ramping up. Her sleep paralysis that she experienced as a child is coming back. And so is her imaginary friend, Zeffie, who she hasn't seen since she was a child. She is more disoriented than ever and is just really struggling to understand what is real. Strange things are happening around the house, and she finally reaches a breaking point and reaches out to her mom. Her mom that she is estranged from and hasn't talked to in a long time. I think actually like her wedding is the last time they talked, and they basically had like this big fight. Zeffie tries to warn her against this and is basically like, this is a terrible idea. You don't, like, your mom didn't like being a mom. You guys don't get along. But Flora has reached her breaking point. She needs help, and at this point, she doesn't even really care who it comes from. She needs to talk to someone who understands the new mom's struggles. She sends an email to her mom, and bam, the next day, Mom Jody is showing up at the house. She wants to help her daughter. But she doesn't want Flora telling her dad that she's there, and Flora finds this kind of strange, but agrees, especially since she thinks, her husband's coming home soon, so Jody can't stay around too long. She just needs a little bit of help. So Zeffie agrees and reminds Flora that, we hate Jody. She was a bad mom. And Flora starts having some childhood memories come back to her, and she's seeing these through a new lens and really starts to realize, like, I don't think my mom loved being a mom herself and really struggled with that role and didn't take care of me the way that she probably should have or that Flora wanted her to. And now before Flora can even deal with that, she starts hearing a man's voice through the baby monitor. Someone is watching and talking to Iris. He's even telling her, oh, you're my good baby girl or something like that. Like, it's creepy. And we don't know, like, who this person is. They end up disconnecting the monitor because it's connected to Wi-Fi. But then Flora's poking around the room as, she's getting this thing unplugged and finds this thing that's called a birth tusk in Iris's crib. Jody says it was under Flora's crib when she was a baby, and it's supposed to ward off evil forces. Things start to escalate as Flora confronts Jody about how much she hated being a mom, and seems that she was trying to make up for it now by mothering Iris and pushing Flora away. It comes to a head when Flora eventually finds Jody breastfeeding Iris one day, this woman who has a fully grown child herself. Flora is completely disgusted and terrified and doesn't understand what is going on here. And then they lose power during a winter storm. They are stuck in this house together and avoiding each other, like Jody has to stay downstairs, Flora stays upstairs. But then Flora goes out just to check on her mom and finds that she's gone. Jody has left and she sees the back door or sees footprints out leading out in the snow. So she follows them and finds that Jody snuck out to set the birth tusk on fire, but it ended up burning her feet instead. So Flora is able to drag Jody back home. She's tending to her wounds. And then they have this major fight over the tusk in the bathroom. Jody hits Flora with it and she ends up blacking out. And when she wakes up, Connor is home and she's now in her bed. Flora freaks out and wonders, who is watching our baby, and asks if her mom is watching Iris. Connor seems a little caught off guard by this question, seems pretty wary, and is trying to ask Flora, are you okay? He tells her that he found her asleep in the bathtub with Iris, resting on her chest. Her mother is not watching the baby, because we get our first twist. Jody died 2 years ago. Boom! Was this all in Jody's head? Was Jody's ghost actually in the house? What the hell is going on here? She knows it was real, and she knows at the same time that is impossible that it's real. She even starts to find evidence of her mother really being in her house, she's finding her hairs and things. She's finding other stuff that she had left behind, that there's no reason Flora would have this on her own. And then as she continues to dig, she does find out that Jody herself spent some time in a mental health facility after Flora was born. Now Flora's starting to wonder, is she repeating what her mother went through? She's trying so hard to stay focused on Iris and recognize what's real and what's in her head, and also notices that, Zeffie has abandoned ship and has disappeared. Flora really needs some answers and talks to her dad about her mom, and even makes this call to this woman named Belinda, who is friends with Jody before she ultimately took her own life. Belinda is a very spiritual person, and she agrees that she might be able to help and she might have answers as to what's going on. Connor is freaked out, he is very worried for Flora and Iris, and he just wants her to get help. He doesn't think a seance is going to solve Flora's problems, and begs her to get real help. He finally comes to the decision that he has to take Iris away for her own safety from her mother. Flora is absolutely spiraling and tears through the house and goes through a box of her mom's stuff that her dad sent over. She finds some of her baby stuff, but also finds dresses that she herself never wore, dresses that have the name Zephyr stitched into the hem, just like her imaginary friend Zeffie. She wonders if these clothes were for an aunt that she never knew, and looks it up online to try and find a death certificate for a Zephyr Martin, who's her mom's maiden name. Can't find anything. And then she starts to wonder if they were actually for a sister that she doesn't know about. Find out it's actually her twin sister, who died at 6 weeks old, which is the same age Iris is now. Flora confronts her father about the discovery, and he tells her the truth about what really happened to Zeffie, and how Jody essentially tried to kill them when they were both babies. He will never fully understand or know what happened that morning, but basically he woke up and he found Jody in an overflowing bathroom. She had Zeffie in the tub, And by the time Dad got in there, Zeffie was already gone. He found Flora alive in her crib, but there was evidence that showed that Jody may have tried to smother her. So he kind of covered for her, and because he doesn't know if she meant to do this or if this was, I mean, it's obviously not an accident, but he's hoping she just had basically like a psychotic break. He takes Jody to the hospital, where she then spends 10 days in the psych ward receiving treatment before coming home to take care of Flora. And he did say that it seemed like she had recovered, she was back to her normal self. Flora asks if, Dad, didn't you think it was kind of weird that my imaginary friend just so happened to have the name of my deceased twin? But he tells her that it actually brought him comfort to think that she was still with Flora in some capacity, that she was still with them, even if she didn't have her body anymore. Now, I will say I kind of figured out that Zeffie was going to be a twin or a sibling of some sort. I didn't hate the reveal, but it was kind of predictable. But at the same time, this is where the story becomes quite unpredictable and also a little rushed and convoluted. And I have a lot of questions about this ending. So after she realizes that Jody has already been gone, she does start looking up the birth tusk and basically finds some lore that it's tied to like this goddess of, I think, like fertility, as well as fire and rebirth. And so she's kind of like, well, that's kind of weird. And her dad tells her that, he bought this on a business trip because it was supposed to protect the baby. Okay. So she has now confronted her father about what happened with Zeffie, and then Belinda arrives into town and is there to help them make contact with Jody. And now they're also going to include Zeffie and try and free them from whatever keeps them here. They do a scrying ritual to connect with the spirits, and this is where the book kind of went off the rails and lost me a little bit. Like, overall, I still really do think this is a fantastic book, but my god, I don't know what is happening in this ending. So we find out that this birth tusk represents this goddess of rebirth, and by doing this seance, they contact like this distorted and warped version of Jody that then ends up possessing Flora's body, and it becomes this thing called the Mother. Like, Flora is basically a passenger in her own body. She can see everything that's happening around her, but she has no control of it anymore. It's this Mother. She's using Flora's body and breaking it at the same time. Because, the body horror in this section is pretty intense. And the Mother wants Iris. Again, Flora is aware but cannot do anything. She cannot control her body. She's crying out for her family to end her and end the Mother with her, but, she can't. The Mother's not letting her speak. She finally gets the strength to take back her body and grabs the birth tusk and sets it on fire, which in turn burns her body as well. She's consumed by the fire, and it also burns away this Mother spirit. Flora is in the hospital, slipping in and out of consciousness, and ends up waking up in like these woods. Now this felt very much like, what is that Robin Williams movie where he has to go through purgatory to find his wife, and then he ends up going to like heaven. What Dreams May Come. That's the movie I'm thinking of. Like, it felt very much like that, where he's, in that scene where like he's talking to his kids, and it's just very beautiful and peaceful, and it's just a very nice place. And Zeffie is there waiting for her. And Zeffie is so excited to share this place with Flora. But Flora tells her, I can't stay here. She does tell Zeffie about what happened to her in her life, as Jody's brain, tricked her into thinking she was doing something good, and essentially, in her version of reality, she was saving Zeffie that day in the bath. Flora tells her that she has to go back to her life and be there for Iris in a way Jody wasn't there for Flora. Flora has to love Iris fearlessly and not be afraid of hurting her. And she's hopeful that now, wherever they are, that true spirit of Jody is available, so Zeffie can get to know her real mother, not this warped thing that ended up being this terror. So she does end up going back into her own body. And like the book ends with Flora alive and celebrating Iris's birthday with their family, as well as celebrating the fact that she is pregnant again. And then it does end on like a little note of like, is she still herself, or is there maybe lingering bits of the mother there? So I'm gonna say that the ending is completely bonkers, and I do think in a way it must make sense to Walters, as it seems like it was well planned out. I mean, we have aspects of this tusk built into this story, and maybe I'm stupid, but I don't get it. It's not the route that I expected this book to go, and it just leaves me with so many questions. Was the tusk causing these haunting-like things to happen? Was Jodi's ghost really there because the tusk brought her back in a sense? Was the tusk protecting Flora and Iris? If so, why would they burn it? Like, what's up with this goddess of, like, rebirth and fire? Was Jodi influenced by the tusk, or was she just having a mental health crisis at the same time? I do think the ending is well written and scary, but it felt very over the top and kind of like it came out of left field. It's both a ghost story, but also evil spirits and goddesses and fire and the mother. Like, Jodi was split in half and all of her terribleness compacted into this evil thing that then became the mother after it possessed Flora. I don't really know. I will say, I think the ending is the weakest part of the story. I don't understand how we got here. And it all went down really fast. I mean, the entire book feels like a fever dream, and in a good way, but this felt way too feverish. Like, the tusk has been a part of the story, but I don't fully understand it, nor the possession of Flora. Like, it vaguely makes sense, but I'm still sitting here like, okay, like, I will say it was disturbing reading about Flora, like, losing herself to this twisted version of the mother and not wanting to hurt her baby. She has no control, and that is terrifying. But how do we get here? It doesn't add up for me. I need more. Or I just need, like, a concrete answer of, like, what this thing was, what it was doing, and why how they got rid of it. Because then we also find out that eventually Flora found out where Zephy is buried, and they buried the birth tusk with her. So is this a protective thing, or is this a demon summoning thing? Because I don't get it. Honestly, the more I thought about it, the more this ending kind of reminded me of We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kleiwer. Now, if you want to know nothing about that book, go ahead and skip to the timestamp that's going to be on screen. This will be a pretty vague comparison, but I guess it potentially could be considered spoilers. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to skip ahead if you want. Okay. If you're still here, that means you've already read that book or you don't care if it might be spoiled. So that ending was a bit open-ended as well. It's kind of up to you to interpret what it all means. But I also think that book had been building to that. It just was. It wasn't defining the lore around the house. Like, I took the ending to mean that there is no reason or bigger meaning. It just is. You go into this house, and that's it. There is nothing you can do, which only adds to the horror element. There's no reasoning with what the house is doing or who it is using. It just exists. It just is. Things happen there, and we don't know why. In this, we have the birth tusk and this goddess and this woman that the dad bought it from, saying that it was protection for his little flower, meaning Flora. We start to build this lore, but to me, it just felt like it was never fully explained. Like, the birth tusk is a supernatural MacGuffin, but I don't know what it is or what it does. In the end, it kind of just feels half-baked, or we're still missing that conclusion part of it. So, I don't know. Again, this is the weakest part of the story. Otherwise, like, the first 90%, loved. Because, yeah, the ending wasn't my favorite, but I still enjoy this. I could not put this down. I read this in a day because I was so into it. This was so descriptive, the supernatural elements were great, And Walters really made me feel disoriented while reading this. Like, I felt what Flora was feeling. The twist of Jody already being dead definitely caught me by surprise. Though I will say again, the twist of Zeffie being a little girl ghost did not. I think it worked quite well, even if it was something I've seen before. I honestly think it would have been harder to swallow if she had tried going a different route, because this just did end up making sense. This is definitely a book about mothers and daughters, and Zeffie fits into that. I really loved how I was pulled into the story right away, and the scary things start happening right off the bat, so it just made it impossible to stop reading. If you're looking for, like, I guess, new mom horror, this is it. I don't know if that's a genre, but I'm going to call it a genre. And I also really appreciated the themes or the explorations around motherhood and family, and this even goes into some, like, trauma responses and learning how to face that. Because we do find out that that sleep paralysis is essentially her remembering what happened to her, as well as Zeffie when they were babies. So her feeling like she can't breathe is from when her mother tried to smother her, and then when she's coming out of her paralysis, she hears like this rushing water sound and realizes that that's her hearing the water filling the bathtub for Zeffie. And I just found that aspect really well done, and I think that comes full circle. Why couldn't we have gotten that with the birth tusk? I just want to know what it means. I think the explorations into the power of motherhood and the fierce love that exists in the bond between mothers and daughters was really well done. Flora will sacrifice anything, including herself, for her daughter because she loves her so. She will be the mother to Iris that she did not get to have. She is going to be better, not bitter about it. Again, overall, I found this to be a fantastic horror story and one that captured me from start to finish. I loved how the creepy stuff ramped up through the story, how visceral Flora's reactions to things were, and just how descriptive everything was. Again, until the very end, I had a little trouble like visualizing what was happening there as like she's being possessed and stuff's happening. But for like the first 90% of the book, it was very vivid, painted me a very scary picture of what was going on. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, loved it, wanted more of it, even if I wanted more answers at the end. But overall, a absolutely fantastic book for spooky season, or really anytime. I read this in August and absolutely loved it. Okay, do you have any recs for spooky reads with, like, again, new mom horror or books about moms and kids? I would love to hear about those recommendations. Please leave your suggestions in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for joining me at Books and Bubbly.